Howdy folks, Spencer here, and before I get started, I just want to give you guys a heads up. This video may be a bit ranty, and I may swear a couple times in it, so if you don't want to hear either of those things, then just turn this video off and wait for the next one. So I want to talk about the lovely set of patches that we got with the September 13th patch, and specifically the changes to the Tholian web spinner array, the Neutronic eddies, and the Agony redistributor. So when I did the initial video going over the patch, I was trying to be fairly optimistic. I didn't want to sound, really negative or anything like that. So I didn't go out and say that they had completely bricked anything or anything like that, because I also didn't know. The server was still down at the time, and I didn't find out until I started the stream about an hour or so later that Cryptic had completely butchered some of these consoles. So let's start off with the Tholian web spinner array. The Tholian web spinner array was adjusted to bring it in line with other consoles because apparently the power damage scale was not how it should have been. Now, what's frustrating about this is the Tholian web spinner array has been out now for over a year. In fact, if I just take this and Google it, it came out in about, where is it here? May. Yeah, May of 2021. So over a year ago, it was released. And, you know, this goes into the point that I've talked about a few times on this channel and on some other streams, that I have little faith in the development team nowadays, and especially the QA team. A damage scaling issue should have been caught in the development cycle of the console. It should not have. We shouldn't be seeing a change like this over a year and a year later. Like this is straight up just something that their QA team or the person developing this console should have caught when they were developing it or when they were testing it. So, I'm not happy about this change. This is something that they should have caught if they were doing their job a year ago. It was quite clear very early on that this was a fairly potent exotic console, and the fact that it took them a year to realize that is just a bit ridiculous in my opinion. The only good thing about this nerf here is that it's not something that a lot of people have access to now. It's not in MUDs yet, but this console with this change today is now doing about a seventh of the damage that it did before, from what I've been hearing. I've heard others saying a quarter to a third of what it did before, but regardless of that, it's doing a fraction of what it used to do, and it's all because they didn't realize when they developed and tested the console a year ago that the power damage scaling was not correct. So I really not happy that it took them so long to figure that out, and that once they did figure it out, they decided to nuke the console by that much. That just not happy with that. Then we have the Neutronic eddies, and now this one I'm really sort of pissed about. But the issue with Neutronic eddies is that this is a console from 2020, and it is also something that they just put into the MUD store just a couple months ago. It is on the Rysian Weather Control Science Vessel, which they put in here, just a couple months ago, and a bunch of people were going nuts to go out and buy. And, it's a ship that came out in 2020. So this is another case of this should have been caught in the development cycle or during QA of the ability when it initially launched. But basically, they didn't like the fact that the eddies, that there's a bunch of eddies that spawn out when you hit this, I think like 4 of them. And if multiple eddies were able to hit a target, then the or whatever the target was would be taking damage from multiple eddies. They no longer want it to function like that, so instead, if multiple eddies are hitting the same target, Only one of them will do damage, but it will receive a small damage boost and drain boost for each additional eddy that is hitting that target. They have also reduced the shield drain. So this is a fairly substantial nerf for some situations. I don't have an exact performance impact for this yet. For those of you that watched my stream earlier, I was rubber banding, attempting to go through sector space quite badly, and the server crashed for 90 minutes in the middle of my stream. So, to be blunt, the servers are too dog shit right now to effectively test this console, because you would want to go in and test it in a map that has a lot of entities. And if I'm lagging around just crazy bad in sector space, just flying my ship around, it's not going to be the best experience trying to test this out in a map against a lot of entities where I'm with a team that's hitting a lot of abilities. The servers for this game suck, and trying to do any testing or DPS runs during time periods where there's lots of players on the server just does not add up for a good experience. Then we have the Agony redistributor. This I was really trying to be optimistic about when I did the patch breakdown this morning, but they have completely butchered the console. And this is the one that pisses me off the most, because people went out and either got the 12th anniversary bundle with the intention of also using this console, or they went out and exclusively bought the Adamant from the C store just to get this console. The Agony redistributor did a lot of damage, and there is no question that it needed some sort of tuning given the various issues it had and the amount of performance it was capable of. However, what they have done is completely butchered it. What they have done with this patch, that they may as well have just removed it from the game. It would have had the same impact as what this patch did to it. If I open up some parses here for you, on the right is my current or former DPS record in ISC, which was 2.78 million. And I hit the Agony console at the start against the TAC Cube, and with Agony redistributor and SCM, it will show up as whatever you hit it on. So I hit on the TAC Cube, therefore it shows up under pets as TAC Cube. In that run, it did 20.27 million damage with a max one hit of 2.261 mil. For its DPS, in the 43-second runtime, it did 463,000 DPS. So definitely quite a bit of damage for a single console. Understandable why it would get nerfed. But they nerfed it just super far. So I went in and did a solo opening, and it took me about 40 seconds to do that start by myself. So similar time frame. The debuff level's not that far off, and it's been hit quite significantly. So I went from having it doing 20 million at the start there to 151k. So it's doing less than 1% of what it did before. And this is similar to other reports that I've seen from other players. So really, they've butchered this console's damage potential. Agony redistributor used to be extremely overpowered, and it very much needed tuning. And they have completely butchered it. It is now a DPS loss to run the Agony redistributor on your ship. And the reason for this is because if you actually look at the console in the game, it now has a damage cap on it. And this damage cap is a maximum of 2,000 damage per second that can be transferred to each of the potential 10 secondary targets. That means that this console can do up to 20,000 damage free resist per second for up to 12 seconds. So that is a bit rough compared to how it used to be. It used to have no cap, and this patch has added in a cap that is just a it's a joke of what this value is, and this this frustrates me. Like the nerf needed to happen, but it didn't need to be so severe that it made the console worthless. They've completely butchered it. I can no longer recommend this console that you use it. If you have it on your ship, I recommend you take it off because they've crippled it. I this leads me into a bit of frustration in that, you know, I've talked about how I feel the developers are just really disconnected from the game. You know, clearly, like with some of the abilities, like I said, Tholian web spinner should have been caught in the development cycle. The neutronic eddies, if they really didn't want the eddies to be able to stack up and hit the same target, that should have been resolved 2 years ago when the ship came out. With Agony redistributor, you know, some of the issues with it, like the double stacking, should have been caught in the QA testing. But now this change that they've done, where there's a maximum of 2,000 damage per second per foe that can be transferred, the disconnect here is who internally thinks that 2,000 damage is a lot. Because whoever that is hasn't played this game in at least a decade. And this is one of the reasons for me personally that I do not put money into the game anymore. I feel like the development team is highly disconnected, especially when it comes to systems and QA. I feel like they don't understand how the game is actually played by people. And when I see that they are capping something at 2,000 damage, it just doesn't make sense to me because the number would have barely made sense a decade ago when I started playing this game. It just is such a low number. It just doesn't make sense. I don't want to like directly call out anyone specifically there, but the fact that they're capping something at 2,000 damage in 2022 when you have people doing millions of damage, I mean, the amount of people that are doing hundreds of thousands of DPS or millions of DPS, it's crazy. You know, the amount of total damage being done in a high level run is easily over 100 million. And they're trying to give us a console that will cap out at doing 240,000 damage every 2 minutes. It's just a bit concerning. And then add into that the person who probably made this change, I don't know if this was Borticus or someone else on the systems team, but you know, there's this big disconnect, and then we have the developers also asking for like uncon builds. It just is uncon next. You know, are they going after more consoles? Are they seeing that consoles are performing too well because of uncon, so they're going and, you know, nuking them? I don't know. But I'm not filled with a ton of hope for the future of this game when it comes to systems mechanics. I think the game's going to be around for a long time. I think the art people, I think some of the content folks, I think a lot of them do a good job. My issue is with the, you know, when it comes to systems mechanics, QA, like I just don't think people there understand how the game is played in the current state. And I think it is significantly hurting the decisions they take when developing this game. And we're seeing that it's taking years for things to get changed that should have been found, you know, before they were released. It just is frustrating. But look, I don't want to keep going on too long here. It's pretty late for me. I already recorded this a few times, and some of the other takes were a bit negative, but these changes are just frustrating. They shouldn't. Two of these shouldn't have even been a thing. These, both the Neutronic eddies and the Tholian web spinner, if those issues were really that big of an issue, they should have been found years ago when those items were released. The Agony redistributor needed to be changed, but the values that they've set it to, if they truly believe that that is like a value that is worthwhile in the current age of the game, just displays pure incompetence on their part. That's going to be it for me today. Once again, thank you to all channel members, and I know this video got a little bit ranty, but do not worry. There's going to be a video out tomorrow going over the new fleet items, so stay tuned for that if that is something you care about. But that's going to be it for me today. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.